Om Sahanā-Vavatu, Sahanā-Bhunaktu, Saha Viryam Bharavavahai, Tejasvinavaditamastu, Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. And below Satguru Shivananda Maharaj Ki, Jai for all the saints and sages of all the traditions. Jai. Okay, so now we have the questions. We've discussed how we as students approach the learning, the process of learning. We've discussed, yes? Yeah? Okay. And so here the master, here's one of these words. No one should allow anyone else to be their master. These are these great yoga misunderstandings, and we touch some of them along the way. No one should ever allow anyone else to be their master. So the word master, when I asked what Swami meant when I was in India, the answer that comes is master. But the meaning of it is one who has or one who is committed to mastering themselves. And so, yeah, meaning the real higher nature, mastering the lower nature, integrating. So we've tried to do it the other way around, to give the lower nature supremacy over the higher nature. Unknowingly, ignorantly. And we've learned coming here that it doesn't work out very well. And so now we're wanting to turn it around. And two ways of saying, for the higher nature, for God to be my master, from speaking up, as it were, or for me to be the master of my lower nature. So you could say either way. Okay, so master meaning simply one who has. That's it. So the master speaks to the student and answers the questions here. And really, this is actually all happening within. The entirety of this. So.
No wonder they keep telling me to look within.
To work within.
Look.
Home.
Look, John.
Oh, well, and discern the difference, exactly what the questions are related to. What is the cause of this bondage or suffering? What is the cause of it? When did it begin? What did it come from? And how to be free of it? That's the first part of the questions. And then, what is the Atman, or the I, the supreme I, supreme self that I hear about? What is it? And what is not it? And how to tell the difference. So, which leads us into this. And here the teacher, and the teacher is simply our own highest self, in this case. Which in this play we relate to as an other. Answers. And so he starts here. Now I shall explain discernment between the Atman and the non-Atman, which you must learn. This is required in order to free ourselves from suffering. So we must learn it, says the teacher. Listen carefully, then realize the truth of it within your own soul. What the seers call the gross body, and this image, everything that we're talking about today, tomorrow, the next couple of days, really is contained here. In terms of a visual, a way to represent it. So there's a lot here. And for those of us joining us online, you can kind of see it. It's hard to read. I did take a picture of it this morning when we completed it this morning and posted the picture of it on a separate post on Facebook. And I'll try to get it linked to this particular discussion. So you have it. And we'll just here, we'll introduce what Shankara is speaking of. Really, he relates to the field or the non-Atman, the experiential plane. And a simple way to relate first and just to step through, what I experience is not me. Now that's a great delusion for us, but it's also a simple truth. Whatever I experience, if I experience it, is it me? No. Because I am experiencing it. Yes? And that will guide us all the way home, finally, when we grasp it. Not grasp it as something independent, but when we understand what's being said and we're able to look at it, and this really forms the Crest Jewel of Discernment, is recognizing the difference between the I and what I'm experiencing. Or I don't even say the I. I say the I because we get confused about I. Right? Whenever we're asked, who are you? We don't know the answer, so we make something up. Then we say, I'm a woman, or I'm a man, or I'm a doctor, or I'm nothing, or whatever we say is really related to the experience that we're having. So this is the delusion, and this is discussed. But it's a fundamental that whatever I experience, I am not. And so here, Shankaracharya is laying out for us what is it that we're experiencing, and he lays it out in a very logical, impeccably logical fashion. We wouldn't necessarily say that it's our common understanding of what we're experiencing, but he's coming at it from a higher place and giving us a set of tools to work with to try to see it, to get it in our own soul. That was the word that was just shared. And so how it's laid out is 3 bodies, 5 sheaths. The bodies are these experiential planes, as it were. And he starts with the physical body, and we'll read on here in a moment, but just to lay out what we've got here. He starts with the physical body, which we think of as the body. That part's fairly easy for us. And then he comes into the more subtle bodies and delineates between them, speaks of the differences, helps us to understand how to differentiate one from another and see if there are really 3 bodies. He says there are. We can see if there really are. And then the sheaths, the Sanskrit word is kosha, and meaning sheath, not sheet, sheath, like a knife. If you have a big knife, normally there will be a cover on the knife. Otherwise, you cut yourself with it. And so, same thing here. And the sheath is the covering for the knife. It used to be leather, like that. The other way we can relate to a sheath is like clothing, covering ourselves. How many layers of clothing do we have? And what are the different layers of clothing? So this is, and then as he steps through this, he's helping us or pointing out what these bodies and these sheaths are so that we can relate to them and, God willing, catch them as experiences instead of I. and be able to discern between the not I, which was one of the questions, and the I. Okay, so he starts. What seers call the gross body is made up of these substances: marrow, bone, flesh, blood, tissue, like this. Yes? Physical body is made up of these? You can add to the list. What could we add to the list?
Hair.
Yeah. Bingo. Okay. Anything you could add to the list? Snot. Anything else? Pus. Yeah. Oh, okay. So it's made up of these. That's what we call the physical body. And then it consists of torso, legs, arms, chest, feet, back, head, and other parts. Anything else?
Hands.
Yeah, there we go. Oh, you got it. You have the gist of it.
I'm catching on slowly.
No, I'd say that's pretty quick. Take that over. Okay. So, let's define the components of the physical body here. The subtle elements are ether, space, air, fire, water, and earth. Portions of these compounded together compose the gross body. So what is it that it's composed of? What is the gross body made of? It has these, or the functions, some of the functions within it, and then the parts, but what is it composed of? What is it made of? What's the material cause? Material cause, he's saying the gross aspect of the 5 subtle elements which he's discussed. And then sound, touch, sight, taste, and smell, these 5 essences of the elements are what we experience. They exist in order to be experienced by the individual man. So he adds a little of the philosophy. But it makes sense, right? 5 senses. And so we're experiencing the 5 sensations, such as sight or vision. So objects that are seen, objects that are smelled, objects that are tasted, objects that are touched,
Hear that
etc.
sentence again. They exist in order to
be experienced by the individual man. And he shares, now, does it resonate that what we've talked about, the elements, this marrow, etc., the torso, etc., etc., and then we talked a little bit about senses. We'll talk more in just a moment about the senses and the organs of action. So does it make sense that we relate to something outside of us in this way? Okay. So they exist in order to relate to what's outside of the body, as it were. Okay. Here's Shankara. He's very direct. Those deluded beings who are tied to the objects they experience by the strong cord of desire, so hard to break, remain subject to birth and death. They travel upward or downward, impelled by their own karma, that inescapable law. So what question is he answering now? He's not answering the question of the not I and the I. Which question is he asking? I just gave you the answer. What were the questions? Keep the questions with you. Keep the questions with you. Don't forget the questions. No, it's very important. If you want to, you have to remember the questions. What was the first question? What is the cause of?
suffering.
Suffering, bondage. Okay, now he's answering this question. So listen carefully. He's very direct. He says, those deluded beings who are tied, does that sound like bondage? Tied? Yes? To the objects that they experience by what? Tied by what? By the strong cord of desire. Yeah? Raga, desire. Or dvesha, aversion. It's the same. Okay. So hard to break. So that strong cord, so hard to break. Remain subject to birth and death. So that's the subject to birth and death, that's the bondage. Or the suffering. They travel upward or downward. What does that sound like? They travel upward or downward?
Heaven or hell.
Very good. Which is where? From a practical standpoint, is it someplace else?
Right here.
It's right here, yes? Just being practical. It's here.
Look within.
So we move up or down within ourselves, as it were. Or within the whole, as it were. And we have that experience, right, of moving up or down. We have the experience, I did something, I moved down. Yeah? Or I didn't do something that the tendency was there to do, so I moved up. Do we have that experience too? I chose not to lose myself to some habit that I'd lost myself heretofore. Yes? And so does that feel like I moved up? Yeah. Oh. So they travel upward or downward, impelled by their own karma, that inescapable law. So impelled by, moved by, impelled, moved by. We keep facing the experiences according to our own karma. But then how we handle the experience inside will dictate whether we move up or down. It's not the karma. He's not saying that the karma itself makes you move up or down. Right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
He's saying you're impelled, you're moved forward by the karmas. Experiences come to you by the karmas. Whether you come to them or they come to you, it's moot.
Like the flow of a river.
Yeah.
You could float on the
Yeah. So past choices, the field is set, the river is set, and now they come to me or I come to them. It's no matter. It's the same thing. And now I face them. Okay. So I was discussing last night a little bit, just some of the sharing in terms of part of Swami's work, and the reason why Swami has to stay committed to sadhana has to do with this very interest in being revered. And so, and it figures then that I would be placed in situations where I have the potential to be revered. And there's a subtle desire for that, which I have no interest in. I used to have an interest in it, and I saw how it makes everyone to suffer. And so I renounced it, but I continue to be placed in situations where it could happen. And the tendency is still there. So as a result, I have to be aware of it, right? I have to watch it. I have to be alert, vigilant. I have to stay with God. I have to stay in the light, and I have to struggle to stay in the light because that tendency can arise. And how does it arise? It arises as a good feeling when someone says some praise words, some words of praise. Yeah? That's the tendency itself. So you can say that's the karmas. The situation that you're placed in and the feeling that arises. That's related to the karmas that he's speaking of. And then, so how do we deal with it? And based upon how we deal with it, we go up or we go down. Yeah? Meaning, if I don't catch it, yes? Mm-hmm. So I was reading the other day, Swami Shivananda used to do SB40, Shubit 40, which is, because he had that thing, obviously. That's why he took on the practice. Yeah. And he would be with, thousands of people, something like that, and they would be revering and worshiping and all that. And he would go back to his kutir and he'd take one of his shoes off and he'd say to himself, "You just love it when those people chant your name, don't you?" Whack! And so he went up. And we have to work on this ourselves. So does that make sense? Up means towards freedom. Freedom from what? Bondage, suffering. Down means deeper bondage. Yeah, more suffering. Okay. And the karmas, the experiences. So where you're placed will be your karmas, but where you're placed won't determine whether you go up or down. Okay. And so really this physical body is relating to as an experiential field in collusion, as it were, with everything outside. But the bondage is this cord of desire, hard to break. So he answers that question about bondage. And then he goes on for a little bit, and it's worth reading to see the situation that we find ourselves in. Now, he's already told us, Shankara already told us before we came here, he already said that we're so fortunate to have taken this human birth and to have a good mind and to have a sound body and to be in a place where we have the potential in our life experience to study the teachings and to practice them. The teachings related to what? The Shanti path. And the teachings that relate to peace or to freedom. So he speaks of how fortunate we are. And he said, took the punyas, the merits from 100 billion well-lived births to be able to have the potential for freedom. And it only happens in the human experience. But then he talks about the other side of the human experience here. He says, the deer, the elephant, the moth, the fish, and the bee, each of these goes to its death under the fascination of one single sense out of the five. What then must be the fate that awaits a man who is under the fascination of all five senses? Part of what comes with the human experience, it's an experience. Part of what comes with the human experience is this, that when we look around us at the other created, generally speaking, one sense comes to the fore. And that one sensation, as he says, provides the capacity to be fascinated. I remember meeting, when I was walking pilgrimage, armadillos. Armadillos? Armadillos. I don't know which way to pronounce it. Armadillo. How do you pronounce it?
I don't know what that is.
Oh, okay. It's D-I-double-L-O. D-I-double-L-L. How's that pronounced?
Texas armadillo.
Dio. It's properly pronounced Dio, but I think in Texas they call it armadillo. So that's how, okay. Moot point. Anyway, we'll move on.
If it's in Italian, then maybe armadillo.
So I met this armadillo. And he didn't really meet me. I walked along and saw him, and his eyes are so tiny. He couldn't see me. And I came up to him. I was downwind from him. His primary sensation is smell. And as soon as the wind shifted, he scampered off. But I was able to get very close to him because he couldn't see me. He couldn't hear me. And they have this big shell, so their sense of touch, they're really isolated from that as well. Yeah. And so, but smell is the thing. It's kind of similar with here we have javelinas, right? And the javelinas are kind of similar to that sense of smell, very, very well developed. And sense of hearing is not bad, pretty good. But the rest of the senses, no, they really can't relate that well. They don't see well. That's how they can get freaked out. People think that they're hostile. They're not hostile. We freak them out if we make sudden movements and like that. So, if you look around the kingdom, we see very rare to have more than one or two senses developed. And then in the human experience, which in the company of this desire and the delusion, taking the happiness to be in the object, right? And then the desire that comes from it, and all five senses that can be acute and can drag us away just like that, coupled with this delusion, the notion that I'm this and that provides the opportunity for happiness. Oh my God, this is what he's saying. Oh my God. Right. It's freaky. If you want to be scared of something, this is a good thing to be scared of. It's continuing to lose ourselves and continuing to go down based upon this cord of desire and aversion. The objects experienced by the senses are even stronger in their evil effects than the poison of the cobra. Poison kills only when it is absorbed into the body, but these objects destroy us merely by being seen with the eyes. Can you catch what he's sharing? We all have something that will relate to eyes, nose, food. You can pick any of the five senses, but can you see how you get destroyed by that object? I see it. You know, in the past, in this birth, objects of the eyes that are seen, and then all the stuff happening in the mind. And then the desire and the strong desire, I can't take my mind off of it. So that's what he means by destroyed. And if we relate to up or down, destroyed. Yeah. So much so that we can lose thousands and thousands of births to it. Real stuff. Real stuff.
Thousands and thousands and
thousands and thousands of births to it. Lost to pizza or to, yeah. Oh, pizza may be a little less likely, but maybe not. Maybe not. So having said that, only she who is free from the horrible trap of craving for sense enjoyment, so hard to renounce, is ready for liberation, and no other, even though she may be schooled in the six systems of philosophy, Sankhya and so forth. So-called seekers for liberation who lack the true spirit of renunciation try nevertheless to cross the ocean of the world. The shark of craving catches them by the throat and drags them violently from their course, and they are drowned midway. He who has killed the shark of sense craving with the sword of true dispassion crosses the ocean of this world without meeting any obstacle. Know that that deluded one who walks the dreadful path of sense craving moves nearer to his ruin with every step, and know this to be true also, that he who walks the path indicated by the teaching, who is his truest well-wisher, he says the teacher, I changed it to the teaching, that he who walks the path indicated by his teacher, who is his truest well-wisher, and by his own better judgment reaps the highest fruit of the knowledge of Brahman. If you really desire liberation, hold the objects of sense enjoyment at a distance, like poison, and keep drinking in with delight such virtues as contentment, compassion, forgiveness, straightforwardness, tranquility, and self-control, as if they were nectar. One should be continually occupied in trying to free himself from the bondage of ignorance, which is without beginning. He who neglects his duty and is passionately absorbed in feeding the cravings of the body commits suicide thereby, for the body is merely a vehicle of experience for the human spirit. He who tries to find the Atman, or himself, capital S, by feeding the cravings of the body, is trying to cross a river by grasping a crocodile, mistaking it for a log. Attachment to body, objects, and persons, also objects, the mask. But it happens so easily, right? Because their story is so similar to my story. Yes? The I, me, mine, so near to us. This assertion. So he says, kill it. And the student asked as part of the question, how to free myself from the bondage? And you see this answer is here as well. And he says, kill this deadly attachment to body and all of this. He says, wife, children, etc. You know what that is? That's also Jesus saying, right here. He says, people think that I came to this world to bring peace, but I did not. I came to burn it, and I pray it's already on fire. The one who puts their brother ahead of me could never have me. The one who puts the mother, their child, their anything ahead of me, they cannot have me. Do we see what he's saying? Yeah. Wife only exists relative to I in a limited sense. Husband, child, not my child. That's the reality of the situation. It's never been my child. But something within us, the voice in the head says, my child. And then we live as if that's true. But it's false. Yeah? Now, stewardship is so much better than ownership. No, it is. God's child. That's a good way to relate. And I have the duty to care for my karma, whatever. Ashram. God's ashram, not my ashram, for God's sakes. You do whatever you will with it. I will do my best to serve. I'll do my best to care. And by the way, I'll make mistakes along the way, and I'll do my best to learn from them. Steward. Not I, me, mine. No. Get away from me. Die. I used to have a visual when I was walking of carrying a flamethrower with me. And sometimes when the I would arise, I would pull out the flamethrower. Singed as it was, it would still come back in some way, shape, or form later. But it did get pretty well fried by the end of pilgrimage. Oh, this is it. So this body, back to the physical body, and we'll continue in the morning with a deep dive through the 3 bodies and the 5 sheaths. But he starts by answering the first question. So he introduces the body. But he answers the question of this suffering or this bondage. What is this bondage? Where did it come from? What was the cause of it? Yeah? And how to be free of it. And he does a pretty good job in a short, yes? So, this body, which is made up of skin, flesh, blood, arteries, veins, fat, marrow, and bone, is full of waste matter and filth. It deserves our contempt. So ultimately, we can look at it in a different way, but it behooves the student who wants to be free to see it more clearly. You know, in the Buddhist tradition, this is a very common practice to see what's really in this body, as it were, in the mind, to turn it inside out. And instead of seeing it as an object of beauty, see it as something completely different. And of course, our seeing is according to our own mind. Really, our seeing is this way. The reason we see one person is beautiful and another is ugly is just because of the karmas, the conditioning, prior experience, prior choices, etc. But it is possible to change it, and so he plants this seed too.
Right.
Why? Because we have to break this attachment to the body. We have to break this attachment to this physical body. We have to break it. The attachment to the physical body with the cord of desires is the cause for the suffering. This is what he's sharing very directly. Okay, questions, comments? And tomorrow morning we'll start diving into what this body is and the sheaths and how to recognize it. Question, sorry? No? Okay. Okay. Ultimately, just to share from here, there's no other issue. There's no other problem. People would ask me when I was walking pilgrimage different questions like, and this is the mind that wants the dirt. You know, what was the worst thing that happened to you? And I would say, desires, thoughts, the mind. Did you ever have any bad days? What happened on a bad day? My mind attacked me. What about a really good day? My mind was very friendly, controlled, supportive. Yeah? Oh. In a way, and he shows how difficult it is because that desire is so strong. Desire and aversion. And it's so persistent. We can feel like, okay, that's it, I've got it now, which is, of course, ego saying. But still, we do make, when we have whatever we desire, if we stick with it, we'll have it. So if we desire freedom from desires, freedom from cravings, if you stick with it, and if you apply yourself, and if it's the most important thing, you'll apply yourself, right? If you stick with it and apply yourself, then you'll make progress on it. It's always so. And yogis, this is the essential practice of yoga. So all of us have made some progress in this. And so you see it. You see how it works. You stick with it. You identify the challenge. You search for what is the solution to this and apply it, practice it, bring it into the daily life. So in a way, it's simple. All of the challenges, all of the issues, they're here. None of them are out there. And what happens to me from out there is just according to my karmas, which means it's going to be perfect for me. Yeah? It's going to be perfect for me. But will the arising be perfect? Well, not likely. In following the arising, the urge or the feeling or whatever it is, is that likely to lead me to liberation? Not likely. And some days it can be a horror show, can't it? Especially when the things that we really like or don't like arise in our field of experience. And we're dealing with a lot of that right now, in particular in the don't like category, though. Yeah.
So we're going to talk more about this like and dislike in the astral, right?
Yeah, we shall. We shall. Okay, let's break. Final prayer and arati. Page 156 in the book. Om. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushti Vardhanam Orvai Rukameva Bandhana Mrityur Mokshiyamamritat. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushti Vardhanam Orvai Rukameva Bandhana Mrityur Mokshiyamamritat. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushti Vardhanam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanan Mrityur Mokshiyamamritat. Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Shantu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashanto Makashitu Kabhak Bhave Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotir Gamaya Mrityor Ma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudashyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. O adorable Lord of mercy and love, salutations and prostrations unto thee. Thou art omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient. Thou art Satchitananda. Thou art existence, knowledge, and bliss absolute. Thou art the indweller of all beings. Grant us an understanding heart, equal vision, balanced mind, faith, devotion, and wisdom. Grant us inner spiritual strength to resist temptation and to control the mind. Free us from egoism, lust, anger, greed, hatred, and jealousy. Fill our hearts with divine virtues. Let us behold thee in all these names and forms. Let us serve thee in all these names and forms. Let us ever remember thee. Let us ever sing thy glories. Let thy name be ever on our lips. Let us abide in thee forever and ever. Ambalo Satguru Shivananda Maharaj Ki, and for all the saints and sages of all the traditions. Jai.